Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome back to Tea and Cookies for 2 for October. And it's pumpkin season, right? Pumpkin spice here, pumpkin spice there. We could not resist doing a patchwork jack-o'-lantern here where we have prefuse and laser cut. And if you're like, I don't really like jack-o'-lanterns, I just want a pumpkin, no problem. We make that completely optional. So if you just want a pumpkin, you can do that. But if you want to have that cute little jack-o'-lantern, we've provided that in your kit, prefuse and laser cut. And of course, the scallop will be laser cut for you as well. If you're just now finding our channel and you don't know anything about this series, first off, welcome. We are absolutely thrilled you're here. Our videos are to teach techniques, fun projects. We have tea and cookies. We have foundation paper piecing series 2. This is a follow-on to what we did last year with Foundation Paper Piecing Series 1. That was so much fun, we just couldn't stop. So we're now in our second series, and you can see, while the fabrics are different, how fun it is to have a coordinating project. Maybe that's on the entryway table, and maybe this could be on a small breakfast nook area. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So just like we've been doing, a patchwork block is what we'll be focusing on today. And then the rest of the assembly of our placemat is the same we've done ever since the beginning, way back on that February project. So again, if you're just joining us, we'll be definitely going into detail about this block, but then on that final assembly, you'll want to check out that very first video where we talk you through this self-binding technique where the back becomes the binding as well. And it's just a cool technique. We get to skip making traditional binding, and that's kind of fun now and again. So really, this is so simple. A lot of what's called sew and flip. So let's just look at that real quick. And of course, by the way, your kit will always include the pattern. This is just supplemental video. The kit's going to include absolutely everything you're seeing. The only thing you'll need to be adding is a little bit of fusible fleece or batting as you prefer, but that pattern will be included with full color instructions and of course this video to help you along the way. So as you can see here, we start off with a full rectangle and then we have a smaller 1 1/4 inch square up in those upper left and right corners and then a larger 1 1/2 in the bottom left and right. And you can kind of see that right there. So easy peasy, simply flip all of those over to the back. And with a straight edge and a temporary marking tool, you're just drawing corner to corner. And we've done that ahead of time, just to save us a little bit of time. So we'll be placing those in opposite corners. In fact, we could even pin all of those all at the same time. I always love having kind of efficient trips to the sewing machine. And you're just going to be wanting to make sure that those are definitely 90 degrees and they're not just a little bit of cattywampus. You need to have them nice and right in that corner. And we'll just pin so that when we do sew directly on that drawn line, we're not sewing over any pins. And of course, we're pinning in those bottom corners as well. And sewing directly on that drawn line. I always love being able to sew directly on a drawn line. It's so much more accurate than kind of just visually going for it. I have seen that at Quilt Retreat where people don't draw the lines and they're just so confident from one corner to the next. I like drawing the line because I want it to be as precise as possible. So let's head over to the machine and we're just going to sew on those drawn lines. I also love my diagonal seam tape, and notice as I line up with my machine, notice how that is right along the red line. That's just helping me get lined up and good and straight, so I don't have a little bit of a curve going into this. And again, see how I'm lined up with that tape? I love that. Sometimes a pin, if your fabric is so small and you're trying to get the pin in, if that ends up distorting or creating kind of a bump in the project, it's okay to take that out. Just make sure you're securing your fabric so it's not going to be moving while you're sewing. So with sew and flip, of course, we're going to trim the excess away. I always like to press away first, make sure everything looks as I believe that it should. Remembering that we started off with this rectangle and it should be the same size. The way you can always know if you really kind of hit that as you would have expected is to actually flip that over. You should not see any of what I just sewed to the front from the back. It should look the same from the back, and it does. So we're in a good spot. Let's trim away some threads. Now grab any ruler you want. I'm going to just grab kind of my 3.5 by 6.5, and you're lifting up that fabric. I'm laying that 1/4 inch seam allowance on there and trimming, because we definitely don't want to just leave that fabric in the project. As an early quilter, I didn't realize that, and I ended up with a lot of extra bulk that really just kind of created problems later on as I was assembling blocks. So anytime you have fabric like this that is just not helping you but could be adding to a little bit of trouble later on, go ahead and trim that away, and then we'll just repress. So that's the very center of our pumpkin. So you can see there's a lot of the sew and flip. Here we had the same. We had a rectangle and a rectangle. Squares in the corner, same thing. Draw the line, sew on the line, press to the outside. So this is the lateral portion of our pumpkin. So as we place these right side together, the first thing I like to do is really evaluate what side should I be sewing. Should I sew from this side or should I sew from that side? I want to keep my eye on those. I'm going to sew from this side. We're going to pin in that corner, pin in this corner, make everything else fit. Now that's going to end up being, let's look here. Remember how this is a smaller square than this, so when we get ready to do the other side of that, I think what I'll do is just do one side at a time. You could see how it'd be very easy to get those wrong, right? Because it fits. So I'm going to go ahead, not get too far ahead of myself, and let's go ahead and sew that down. I'm going to put my seam guide on, and I just know, because I've already used another measuring tool, to know that if I'm just to the right, just seeing that black line on my Cluck Cluck Sew tape, my seam guide is in the right position. All right, let's give a press. And we're going to press away from the center. All right. And then again, noticing that we have this smaller up here, and looks that's correct to us. Kind of just one more verification before we sew it all together. Oh gosh, I've done that. Made some assumptions. I've sewn a border on upside down that had a very directional fabric. Had it just flipped 180 degrees. Oh, good grief. That's a lot of seam ripping. So I definitely have learned over the years to just double check before I sew, because I so prefer to sew than seam rip, right? I think we're all like that. Again, a good 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we'll press to the outside once we're done. Okay, while that's, I'm going to put a clapper on that. I just want that to be nice and flat. I'm just going to do that diagonally. Okay, while that's kind of cooling down, let's just talk about the upper portion. You can see this was just a rectangle. This was a rectangle. This started off with a rectangle and surprise, sew and flip, right? Very small pieces that you drew the line, so flipped inward there. And now we have just the rectangle and you're just sewing that all together. So again, I'll flip that over so you can see our construction technique, but it's really just the same things, right? And I should have mentioned right in the beginning, a lot of this depends on very precise cutting. So if it's been a while since you've changed the blade in your rotary cutter, go ahead and do that. Also, I know it's a temptation to kind of cut your fabric, but instead of giving it a good clean press, just do that. Press everything out nice and just smooth, even using some sizing, that fresh blade and making precise cuts. That is one of the things that derailed me as a quilter, and I didn't realize the importance of those steps setting me up for success. So I should have mentioned that, you got to start off with some good, clean, and accurate cuts to expect great results, of course. Once you have the top assembled, and now we have our bottom portion, now it's simply a matter of placing them right side together. And again, we'll pin corner to corner first, because that's got to fit. Then I pin right in the middle. And any other place you feel is important. If you don't want that seam to roll back, you might consider putting a pin right along here. Maybe I'll put another one there. All right, let's sew that. Okay, let's see this cute little pumpkin. Now you can see here, we really want to evenly distribute that bulk. Our pattern is recommending to press the seam open here. And that's a great time to talk about using a clapper, right? There's a lot of seams coming together. We want our block to lay good and flat. I'm gonna let that stay there just a little bit longer. And then here comes that clapper just to kind of sit on top of that and get that good and flat. Okay, while that's happening, let's just take a look at our project while that's kind of just cooling down, just like we've been doing. Once your patchwork block is complete, go ahead and complete the other block, of course, get those done. We decided to wait, as tempting as it is at this point to put the jack-o'-lantern face on. We love to be able to do that really much later on and be able to quilt all the way through to the back so everything just looks embossed. So our next step would be putting our side borders on, followed by our top borders. We've been doing that really consistently throughout our program. Again, that precise cutting comes into play. And now that we have our block, it's a good thing to press from the front of that. And this is where, again, if that's completely new to you, be sure to join us on that initial video where we take that deep dive, putting our borders on and every step along the way. Of course, we're going to sew these on, being sure to press, away from all of these seams, you're pressing toward your borders. Then comes your top and bottom border. And then you have this unit completed. As a reminder, when you get ready to do this part of that, so easy for you because we prefuse and laser cut that scallop for you. I think cutting around curves is one of the most difficult things to get it just beautifully smooth. I love that that's already done for you. None of that tracing, cutting, and that stress of trying to get it perfect, right? So you have your background. You'll simply iron this down to both of those pieces. And again, you could either stitch down now or wait later on and stitch that down. It may be a step that you want to do at this point, and go ahead and stitch that down with the black that's in your thread set, a cute little 4-piece thread set. Once that's done, you're joining your block unit, of course, to this part, and you have kind of that field. You have your fusible fleece or your batting, and then of course comes this adorable self-binding technique. Again, if that's new to you, be sure to check out those early videos where we take, again, that deep dive. Those are much longer videos. If you're going to take the option of adding that jack-o'-lantern, this is what you'll be getting. Again, how nice. It's just cut out for you, right? None of that tracing, none of the cutting, and you're just peeling off those pieces, placing them, of course, on your block, exactly where you want those to go, ironing it down, and then you're stitching, right? You've got these beautiful colors. And we'll just kind of zero in on the quilting that we did here. You can see we used all these colors, and it's stitched all the way to the back. It just kind of merges everything together, and everything looks beautiful and embossed. So you can see we have a lot of fun putting these projects together for you. When I was doing this one, I thought, should I put a jack-o'-lantern face? And I know I had already done that with the foundation paper piecing, giving you the option of whether you want just pumpkins or you want maybe some of those to have a jack-o'-lantern face. So we want to do the same thing here, again, so the projects could coordinate. So I sure hope you're enjoying this series. There's an adorable one coming your way for November. I'm having a lot of fun with this. And again, if you have been a holdout about foundation paper piecing, or maybe it's been a while, pick up that kit and join me on that full tutorial. We're having a lot of fun in that series as well. And subscribe, let your friends know, let your Quilt Guild know. This is the place to be for fun projects, fun series, and so much more. I look forward to seeing you next month as we continue our series.